Social organisations mobilised in Chile to demand the resignation of the National Police Director, Mario Rosas. The World Health Organization Head of Emergencies estimates that 1 in 10 people worldwide may have been infected by the novel coronavirus. During a visit to Ankara, the NATO chief urged Turkey to use its influence to ease tensions between Azerbaijan and Armenia. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. And we begin in Chile, where social organisations mobilised and marched to the presidential palace to demand the resignation of Chilean police director Mario Rosas. The popular movement blames the police high command for the ongoing repression of protesters, with the latest example being a 16-year-old boy who was thrown into the Mapocho River during a day of demonstrations in Santiago. Human rights organisations said the young man suffered serious fractures and a contusion. In addition, various groups of citizens have requested the reactivation of the constitutional accusation against Interior Minister Victor Pérez, as well as the extension of the investigation due to the intention of the officers to make the victim, who was hospitalised, look like a detainee. In Chile, the Senate Committees on Citizen Security and Human Rights summoned Interior Minister Victor Pérez and National Police Director General Mario Rosas to a hearing to analyse the incident in which the young man was thrown into the Mapocho River by a police officer during a protest in the Chilean capital. Both officials were summoned by the Senate Committees on Monday to explain in detail the police procedure that ended with the 16-year-old being injured after falling into the river. Senate President Miguel Ángel Colisto described the incident as extremely serious and said that the actions of the police officer were reprehensible from every point of view. Colisto said he hopes that both Minister Pérez and General Rosas will sanction the officer responsible for the act. Honduras hopes to complete on Monday the return of a caravan of more than 1,000 migrants for Guatemala on Thursday. Reported that at least 1,000 people had completed their return to Honduras as of Sunday through 3 migratory points on the northern border. That amount represents 83% of the migrants that the National Biometric Control System of the Migration Institute estimated had left as part of the caravan last week. The government official said that of the total number of people who returned, almost 700 are adults and 346 are minors. The Deputy Minister urged parents not to subject their children to the dangers of the migratory route and called on people not to be fooled by human traffickers, known as coyotes, who assure them that travelling with minors makes it easier to enter the United States. And Mexico's National Human Rights Commission has called on government authorities to avoid acts that could violate the human rights of members of the Honduran migrant caravan bound for the United States. The call was made by the Commission to the authorities of the 3 branches of the Mexican government in view of the likely entrance of the caravan into Mexico on its way to the US. Mexican authorities have warned that they will carry out operations to prevent the passage of this new caravan at the crossing points from Guatemala. However, the Human Rights Commission will deploy a team of 18 people, including doctors, pathologists and assistants, at the southern border of the country in order to accompany and attend to any eventuality that may arise for those whom they consider to be a vulnerable group. In Argentina, this Monday saw the start of the trial for crimes against humanity committed by 5 retired soldiers who took part in the so-called death flights linked to the disappearances of leftist political prisoners between 1976 and 1983. The 5 soldiers are directly charged with the kidnapping, torture and murder of 4 victims. Among them were 2 high school students who were kidnapped by the military in November 1976, held in clandestine torture centres and later thrown into the Rio de la Plata River. This week will see the Argentine justice system processing several trials related to human rights violations during the US-backed dictatorship led by General Jorge Videla. On Wednesday, Cordova's Federal Criminal Court will continue the public process against 19 former military men for crimes against humanity committed against 40 political prisoners linked to the People's Revolutionary Army. The United Kingdom Court of Appeals this Monday overturned the decision that granted Venezuelan opposition lawmaker Juan Guaido control of 31 tons of Venezuelan gold reserves held by the Bank of England. In September, the Venezuelan central bank filed an appeal against the British High Court decision that prevented President Nicolas Maduro's government from accessing the gold reserves valued at more than $1 billion at the time, deposited in the Bank of England in London. Judge Stephen Mayles said the UK's recognition of Juan Guaido, who self-declared himself president of Venezuela, was ambiguous. Sawash Sawali, a lawyer for the Venezuelan Central Bank, noted that the previous court decision was not correct as it granted control of the reserves to a group of people living outside Venezuela who the Constitutional Court in Venezuela had already ruled to have no lawful authority. And British independent journalist John McEvoy, who's been following the case of Venezuela's gold reserves withheld by the Bank of England, responded to the Court of Appeal's ruling this Monday, which represents a major victory for the legitimate Venezuelan government of Nicolas Maduro.
Appeal overrules a prior judgment from July this year, where a judge in the UK High Court ruled that the UK government unequivocally recognises Juan Guaido as the legitimate president of Venezuela, and therefore the gold stored in the Bank of England is rightfully his. However, in the most recent judgment in the UK Court of Appeal, the judge found that the UK government does not actually unequivocally recognise Juan Guaido, and this judgment is quite important given the given the value of the gold held in the Bank of England. The Maduro government has requested access to it in order to fight the coronavirus pandemic. And it's also important because of the economic crisis that's going on in Venezuela at the moment. For example, during 2018, the total cost of food and medical imports was $2.6 billion. So the amount that's being withheld in the Bank of England at the moment almost covers an entire year of imports of food and medicine. This by no means is the final decision on this case. This will now be handed back to the UK High Court to try and decipher what the UK government's position on this situation is. So until a full decision is made, that gold will remain restricted in the Bank of England.
The head of emergencies at the World Health Organization said Monday its best estimates indicate that roughly 1 in 10 people worldwide may have been infected by the novel coronavirus, which is more than 20 times the number of confirmed cases, and warned of the difficult period to come.
The global numbers belie significant differences, as I said, in regional epidemiology. Southeast Asia continues to see a surge in cases, with Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean regions showing an increase in cases and deaths. The situation in Africa and the Western Pacific is currently rather more positive. Our current best estimates tell us that about 10% of the global population may have been infected by this virus. This varies depending on country, it varies from urban to rural, it varies between different groups. But what it does mean is that the vast majority of the world remains at risk. We know the pandemic will continue to evolve, but we also know we have the tools that work to suppress transmission and save lives right now, and they are at our disposal. The future depends on the choices we collectively make about how we use those tools, develop, scale up, and distribute others.
Authorities in Belgium, one of the hardest hit European countries by the pandemic, are warning the number of virus cases is rising sharply and is likely to do so for several more months. Since the start of the pandemic, more than 130,000 people have been infected with the virus in the country, which has a population of around 11.5 million. As of Monday, 10,064 COVID-19 related deaths had been reported, representing one of the highest mortality rates reported worldwide. Last Thursday, Belgium dropped rules requiring people to wear a mask outdoors, but they must still do so in crowded places. The government also reduced the mandatory quarantine period from 14 days to 1 week for people with COVID-19 symptoms who eventually test negative for the virus.
Unfortunately, the stabilization that we had hoped for has not happened. On the contrary, we see a clear increase in the number of cases in every region and age group. The trend is the same as the one we witnessed in our neighboring countries, such as France or the Netherlands. During the last 7 days, we recorded an average of 2,103 new cases per day. This represents an increase of 32% in comparison to the previous week. Just to give you a striking example, on Wednesday, September 30, We were way over 3,000 new cases in one single day.
After a meeting with EU Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier on a visit to Berlin, German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas described the possibility of a no-deal British exit from the bloc as totally irresponsible.
The COVID-19 pandemic has made discussions at all levels even more difficult, but it has also made an agreement even more urgent. With today's health and economic challenges, people on both sides of the channel have enough to shoulder, so it would be totally irresponsible to burden them in this position with additional problems through a no deal.
This Monday, US citizens Harvey Alter and Charles Rice, together with British-born scientist Michael Horton, were awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine for the discovery of the hepatitis C virus. Announcing the prize in Stockholm, the Nobel Committee noted the trio's work helped explain a major source of blood-borne hepatitis, which could not be explained by the previously discovered hepatitis A and B viruses, adding that their work, dating back to the 1970s and 80s, has helped save millions of lives. The World Health Organization estimates there are over 70 million cases of hepatitis worldwide and 400,000 deaths each year. The disease is chronic and a major cause of liver inflammation and cancer.
The World Health Organization estimates
during the last 100 years, science has profoundly changed the conditions for humanity on the planet. I mean, this is of course not the first virus to be awarded with a Nobel Prize. I mean, it started with the yellow fever in 1951, hepatitis B, HIV. So there are many viruses that are very important for human disease, and the discovery of these agents, of course, make safe diagnosis and sometimes also good treatments available.
On Monday, New Zealand authorities announced that wildfires have destroyed up to 50 homes, saying it was a miracle no one was hurt, as most of a remote South Island village was burnt. The blaze began in a mountain forest early Sunday morning and, fanned by strong winds, swept through the village of Lake W.H.O, forcing residents to flee for their lives. The Fire and Emergency Service said the unpredictable winds made fighting the flames a challenge, and by Monday afternoon it had razed 4,600 hectares of land. 11 helicopters and 8 fire crews were working to contain the flames. This year, New Zealand experienced its warmest winter on record, which the National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research said was consistent with a long-term trend of rising temperatures linked to climate change. US presidential candidate Joe Biden's lead over President Donald Trump nearly doubled following Tuesday's presidential candidates debate, according to a poll conducted by NBC News. Former Vice President Biden received 53% support in the poll, while President Trump received 39%, thus representing the highest advantage yet for Biden. Biden, whose foreign policy proposals appear to be fundamentally similar to Trump's, has been fighting for the Latino vote in Florida and pandering to different communities, including Miami's Venezuelan population. This Monday, he visited 2 important South Florida communities, Little Haiti and Little Havana, for campaign activities, and on Monday night he will appear in a nationally televised town hall originating from Miami. The poll's findings reflect the views of voters before the president announced that he and First Lady Melania Trump had tested positive for the coronavirus, and it remains unclear how his illness will be viewed by the public amid Washington's disastrous response to the public health crisis. China has seen 50 consecutive days without any locally transmitted cases of COVID-19. After bringing the novel coronavirus under control, mass travel between different parts of the country has resumed as it celebrates the so-called Golden Week, an 8-day national holiday. Let's take a closer look.
These images were unthinkable just 8 months ago when the COVID-19 pandemic braked in China. But today, crowds of tourists go again to the iconic sites of the country, a clear evidence that the new coronavirus is kept under control. China has lived 50 consecutive days free of cases of local transmission of the disease, and millions of people travel all around the nation, taking advantage of the known Golden Week, an 8-day holiday that began on the 1st of October. More than 600 million domestic trips are expected on this national holiday, and already 400 million have been made during the first 4 days of the festivity. Although the country reported 20 imported cases this Monday, the authorities confirmed that these are handled in isolation and will not have contact with local people. The amount of people that have moved inside China in such a short period of time is unthinkable in many parts of the world, where governments are still struggling to control the growing infections.
A major surge might show up if we could lose from prevention measures against the epidemic, so it is necessary to hold on to the normalized epidemic prevention and control. Face masks should be one of the accessories everyone should have, especially when you stay in a crowded or closed place. People are advised on high alert against respiratory infectious diseases in the fall and winter.
According to the experts, the Golden Week holidays are an ambitious proof of China's success in mastering the virus and also a highly expected boost to its economic recovery. With a population of 1.4 million inhabitants, China is using, for now, its domestic tourism to relaunch an industry that represented at least 11% of the national GDP before the pandemic and which has been one of the most damaged industries by the pandemic around the world.
This Monday, during a visit to the Turkish capital, Ankara, the Secretary-General of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization urged Turkey to use its influence to ease tensions between Azerbaijan and Armenia over the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region.
Deeply concerned by the escalation of hostilities, all sides should immediately cease fighting and find a way forward towards a peaceful resolution. And I expect Turkey to use its considerable influence to calm tensions.
And the Iranian Foreign Ministry on Monday warned Armenia and Azerbaijan over the possibility of any attacks on its border areas as the violence escalates in the neighbouring nations to the northwest of Iran.
The Islamic Republic of Iran cannot tolerate conflict on its borders, especially any assault on its soil. We have told our friends in both capitals, Baku and Yerevan, to be extra cautious and practice utmost care about this. Any aggression against borders of the Islamic Republic, even inadvertently, is a very serious red line for the Islamic Republic that should not be crossed. Iran has prepared a plan to end the conflict, with a specific framework containing details after consultations with both sides of the dispute, Azerbaijan and Armenia, as well as regional states and neighbors, and will pursue the implementation of this plan.
Azerbaijan's defense ministry released footage on Monday of what it claims are Azerbaijani soldiers taking control of a village in the territory of Nagorno-Karabakh. The Azerbaijani flag was also seen on a building in the village, which appears to be deserted. Fighting between Armenian and Azerbaijani forces over the Nagorno-Karabakh region resumed on Monday morning, with both sides accusing each other of launching attacks. Armenian military officials reported missile strikes hitting the territory's capital. The region is located in Azerbaijan but has been under the control of ethnic Armenian forces since the end of a war in 1994. 100 days into his term, the new president of Malawi has called for more time to implement his campaign promises. Lazarus Chakwera won an election re-won on June 23rd after the country's highest court invalidated a 2019 vote which had handed victory to his rival and predecessor Peter Mutharika over fraud.
Have you done enough? No, I will be the first one to tell you I have not done enough. And this country has not done enough. More than what is happening right now. 100 days is not a panacea for every problem we face. That, even in political science, must be challenged. Not everything done in 100 days means it should define your presidency or your leadership for the rest of that, because you can change your course of any direction at any time.
The world's longest high-altitude highway tunnel officially opened in the northern Indian state of Himachal Pradesh. The Atal tunnel represents a milestone in transport development technology and is located on the side of the Himalayas, 3,000 meters above sea level. The project took 10 years to complete and was designed for a traffic density of 3,000 cars and 1,000 trucks per day. The tunnel is equipped with the latest technological advances, including semi-transverse ventilation systems. It reduces the road distance by 46 kilometers, as well as travel time by 4 to 6 hours. The authorities explain that the infrastructure has an entry every 500 meters, so people can be rescued speedily in case of an emergency. On Monday, Afghan officials announced that a suicide car bomber had targeted the convoy of a provincial governor in the country's east, killing at least 8 people. According to his spokesman, the governor was unharmed. The attackers in Laghman province also wounded 38 people, including both members of the military and civilians. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack, but both the Islamic State group and the Taliban are active in the area. Both groups have carried out attacks in the past against Afghan government representatives, national security and defence personnel, as well as civilians. And we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And you can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.